there's body wiggles.
Wiggles.
And what do you do with your feet in a gusky?
Just keep them straight.
Okay.
And you're going to wiggle your body, and then next, we're going to do jumping jacks.
Okay, so get warm with some wiggles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Look, everybody's wiggling. I like it. Wiggle.
Is that good for the immune system?
Mm-hmm.
Gets everything moving.
Qigong. Faster.
Okay. Now a few jacks.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping actually or just moving slowly?
Jumping naturally.
Okay, let's see you do 10.
Okay, so feet out wide.
However you want to start. Feet in the air. Yeah. They're doing it with you. All right. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Merrick.
Thanks, Merrick. I warmed up.
Stop.
Okay. Oh. Are you back around? Did that work? Am I back?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to mute you all. Okay, so come down on the mat, please, and lie on your back with your feet on the floor to start. So, first just kind of ground yourself. You can put your hand on your chest and your belly or bring your hand into prayer. You just switch something else. Just take a few minutes to breathe. You can do that while you're on the ground and just allow your body to settle today. So this position that we use that's called hook lying is the most gentle position for how much thoracic extension we're asking for, how much upper back extension we're asking for. And in Egoscue, a lot of the things that we're looking at is if we're trying to change the chain all the way from the feet up to the shoulders, then what position will allow for that to occur without things getting stuck? So in this hook line position, your ankles are partly pointed, and that's going to shorten the backside of your body a little bit, lengthen the front, and change what's going on all the way up the chain. But it's less intense than even static back for what's happening in your upper back. So today, I want you to completely relax your belly. You should have some curve in your low back, and I want you to gently tuck your shoulders underneath you. And I want you to just take 3 big full breaths in your belly and let your belly rise and fall, or at least let the rib cage move in an east to west direction so that that's going. But I don't want you to have your hands anywhere, because if you do have your hands somewhere, that restricts the opening that we're trying to get to in your upper back. So arms out to the side, resting on the floor, shoulders tucked underneath you so they're lying flat against the rib cage. And then I want you to find that breath. Big, fully in, fully out. 2 more. Fully in, fully out. 1 more time. Fully in, fully out. So now feel your shoulders on the ground, feel your hips on the ground, and notice if they're even or if they're not. Now, I can tell you right now, my upper back is not even as I lie here. About my mid-back up, there's that difference in my 2 shoulder blades is still pretty significant. I can check this, and you can too. So bring your hands up and let that internal rotation happen and just see if there's a difference. And if there's a difference in internal rotation, then we know that the shoulder that doesn't internally rotate as well is still a bit out of position. So what we have to do is find some way to move up the chain to get that to let go, and then internal rotation will happen easily. That has been a big epiphany, where before I wanted you to go into it and do PNF stretching and do things like that. And basically what Pete said to me was, the body wants to be able to do what you're asking it to do, but if it's not in the right position for that to happen, it won't do it. Am I still here? Yes? Okay. So let's do some things here. And the first thing I want you to do, if you have that rubber band, you can put it on your hand. If not, just let's play with extension in our fingers so that you can pull your fingers open and use the extensors in your wrists to start to create change all the way up that chain. So from arms out to the side at a 35 or 30 degree angle, and just open your fingers as best you can so that you're using the muscles around your forearm, and notice if your wrist wants to bend or do something there to get some of that to change. And let's do about 10 finger extensions. And as your shoulder starts to change position, I want you to let it open up and stick it more underneath your back so it's lying more flat onto your back. Good. Now, take your hands into the golfer's grip. So that grip is this position where the fingers are curled, but the palm is still open and the wrist is still really straight. So in hook lying, elbows at 30 degrees, that's the most open position for the shoulder, into the golfer's grip. And then I want you to move your wrist. And again, we're pulling on the tendons and muscles and repositioning the bones that move into that shoulder in an attempt to get that shoulder blade to move into a better position. Now, sometimes the upper back is a compensation and sometimes it's the main dysfunction. So if it's a compensation and it's not letting go in this, let's go to your feet, just for those of you that may have more of a hip disparity that needs to come out before that shoulder can drop. So keep your arms out to the side and then go up on your toes and back on your heels. And let's see what happens. You should have a slight curve in your low back. I want you to just really go up on your toes, back on your heels, rocking 10 times. And if you notice this is changing your shoulder more, it may give you information about where the main dysfunction is, or maybe that dysfunction in your hip allows that compensation in your shoulder to go. And it may not matter so much if we nail which one is which one is the dysfunction or which one is the compensation, as long as you notice it's starting to come out. Good. Okay, let's go back to your shoulders. Elbows back up, arms out to the side. Now I want you to pinch your shoulder blades together in towards your spine. Squeeze the shoulder blades toward each other, so you're increasing that extension all the way up the chain. Press your big toes down into the floor and then release the shoulders. Go after squeeze and release, and find the rhomboids, find the muscles that hold that shoulder into a better position and help increase the thoracic extension in your upper back. You may notice things releasing in your lower back. I've done a lot of work this week on taking the fascial suit that I talked about before that was twisted, and like literally grabbing those muscles and pulling up like this so that you're beginning to move the fascia in your body. So you could do that a little bit and then go back to that squeeze release in your shoulders. And then one more time, up on your toes, back on your heels. And what we're working on here is that balance left to right. In one of Pete's texts to me, he said, balance tells all. In my body, he said your shoulder was hinging forward, which was causing your hip to move into abduction. He said it was straightforward and predictable. And it's been so cool to feel that begin to unravel. Excellent. Reach your arms up to the sky. You can interlace your fingers, strong elbows. Pull your arms all the way over to the floor. Increase your upper back extension so that as your arms go over, you may feel a little lift wanting to happen as it moves from your pelvis up your low back, into your middle back, up to your head and neck. Then bring your arms back up, take it back over again. Let's do 20 of those. And you may feel things moving in your hip. You may feel your pelvis start to tip a different direction if it was held one way or the other as we begin to release some of the compensation for some of you that might be in your upper back. Elbows really strong in this one so that things are really straight as you go over. Remember to relax your belly. I have 3 more. Awesome. Now go ahead and rest your arms out to the side on the floor. Bring your arms up together as they touch above your head. Remember, your hips might want to shift position again. Take a deep breath into your belly, relax your belly, and then bring your arms down, letting them glide on the floor. Tuck your shoulders underneath you as that continues to move and your upper back begins to continue to change. Slide them up, arm glide up and arms down. Continue to let that happen. Let's do 5 more of these. All the way up, all the way down. 5. All right. Now, I want you to put your legs up over the chair. So we're going to increase the demand of what it means for your upper body to relax or to extend. So bring your legs up over a chair or a block. So as a human being, when you bring your legs into this much hip flexion, if your low back muscles are doing the correct thing, they should relax all the way to the floor. So if you get into this position and your low back doesn't just go to the floor, or your upper back is really curled off the floor, you've got some time to hang out here, which is why we've called this the silver bullet, because so much is happening to get the lumbar erectors to let go, to change any imbalance that might exist in the low back muscles, and how that translates all the way up into the upper back. That extension that it's asking for is greater just because the angle of the hips and what the pelvis is supposed to do if it's working correctly, if the body is working correctly. So go ahead and go to your feet, and I want you to do 20 foot circles all the way around. Right foot first. And we're just going to, again, pull on that entire chain of muscle that goes from that foot all the way up. And we're going to do one at a time so that if there's a balance issue in your body right to left, then it will start to be addressed. Arms out to the side, palms up, shoulders scooched underneath you, and just keep feeling what's happening in your back. Ideally, your pelvis and shoulders should get more and more even. You may notice some tension coming out of your neck as this releases. Reverse your direction of your circle. And then point and flex. And as you point, I want you to take the bottom of your foot as if my hand was the foot and curl the whole bottom of the foot together as you point your toes so that all the muscles that make up the arches of your feet get to work in that plantar flexed position. And then as you dorsiflex the ankle and pull it back, that your toes stay kind of relaxed and the ankle really cranks backward, and if you hold it, you should feel that change all the way up from the calf into the hamstring, into the low back, into the shoulder, and maybe even the shoulder will drop more easily. So point, crank it. Bottom of your foot, cramping would be fine, especially because it's your foot, not mine. Point, curl those toes, and then flex the foot back. And point. Keep going, but think of almost like you have this chain of muscles up the back and chain of muscles up the front, and you're alternating them as a pulley system that's going all the way from the foot up to the base of the neck as you move that foot one direction to the other. We're treating the body as a unit. We're using one part of the body to allow another part of the body to shift in its position. And then go second foot, start your circles, 20 circles. So let's say we take pictures of you and we're noticing that one side is doing something really different than the other. Maybe one shoulder is hinging forward, or one side of your pelvis is going forward and the other side is in neutral or going backwards. We know that there's a balance issue or a dynamic tension issue. When we see front to back, we call that dynamic tension. And as we create a set of exercises for you, we're trying to address the dysfunction and the compensation, go the other direction, to bring that balance back into the two sides of your body, always taking into account that the position of the entire body at any given time. That's why we do gravity drop. That's why we lie on the floor like this. How is gravity and the floor holding that balance between your pelvis and your shoulders right now as we pull on those muscles to get things to shift? You can, as they do, tuck your shoulders underneath you a little more. And just check, do you have low back happening down to the floor easily? Shoulders relaxing. Point and flex your foot again. And see, you can visualize the front and the back of your body from your foot all the way up your calf, into your hamstring, into your glute, all the way up the upper back, releasing. And then as you flex the foot back from the front of the foot to the front of the shin to the front of the hip, up that whole side into the front of that shoulder, and see if that can help it let go. Some things are letting go, other things might be turning on. Maybe that shoulder in the back hasn't had good access to that rhomboid muscle that holds it closer to your spine because it's been sitting abducted, and that as you are lying here and the chest is opening, the rhomboid muscles can start to engage in a better way. Perhaps an imbalance that's in your back muscles starts to unwind as your pelvis is here being held by the floor and one side isn't forward and one side isn't backwards. Okay. All right, now let's bring your arms back up. Go ahead and push your block away. And I want everybody to check, if you bring that up, what happened to your internal rotation in your shoulder. Is it better? Yes? Awesome. Okay. Let's increase the demand again by rolling onto your belly. So now, coming down onto your belly, I want you to fold your hands under your forehead and just really relax your upper back. So we just moved from hip flexion, both in hook lying and in static back, into hip extension, which means that we're asking for some arch in the low back and a relax in the upper back. I'm still after some thoracic extension, so to get what I want here, I really want your upper back to be open, relaxed, and I want your belly to be relaxed. Now, as we bend your legs up, your pelvis is going to roll forward over your hip bones. That's supposed to happen. So as you pull yourself into this knee flexed position, I want that lumbo-pelvic rhythm to happen, or the pelvis to drop forward. So relax your belly again. You might have to lengthen your belly or walk it forward on the floor, and just completely relax your head into your hands. Continue to remind yourself to relax your shoulders, because if you hold tension in your shoulders or your belly, the change that we're after will not happen here. So, from this position, relax your belly, relax your shoulders, and then I want you to flex your knees as much as you can. That's going to increase the arch in your back, and then I want you to do those point and flexes right here. So big point and curl the bottom of the feet in, let the arches work. Let any rotation that might be in the lower leg start to unwind. And maybe that lets you feel like a hip starts to open. And possibly your knees will bend a little bit more. If you feel tension in your low back here, that's another place that definitely can feel it. As we ask that to move, if the curve of your low back is impacted, somehow because of a pelvic disparity or something, then your back may not extend as well as we want it to. So you may feel, I do, some tension right in the SI joint right there, and that would be normal and common. So walk it a little bit forward. Not optimal. That's that place I say a lot. Common, but not optimal. So go back and forth now, point and flex. Point, curl the bottom of the feet. We're pulling on that whole line all the way up. Relax your upper back, relax your belly. Take a deep breath in there. Point and flex a few more times. Pull on those right to left muscles all the way up that chain. For those of you that may feel a little SI stuff, let's take one leg down, keep one up so that we're just pulling on one side at a time. It might be a little less intense. Or maybe more intense on that side until it shifts. Breathe, relax your butt, relax your belly. And switch. Point flex. And then take both legs out on the floor. Pigeon toe your feet, toes out. You give yourself a little rock back and forth, and then stretch your arms straight over your head. Hands in that same golfer's grip. Thumbs up, and then we're going to go really strong straight elbows. And I want you to pull your arms out to the side. Relax your belly, relax your butt. Allow your pelvis to rotate over your femur bones and extend all the way up the chain into your upper back. Take a deep breath. Breathe in that east to west direction, full deep breaths. Notice if there's tension in his shoulder. Your body wants to be able to do what you're asking it to do. So if you're asking for external rotation in the arm bone and it's not quite happening, then somewhere up the chain still isn't extending quite as well as we want it to. So see if you can relax and breathe into that. Keep opening it up. Use your diaphragm. Maybe you can adjust it a little more. Let's go out to that Y shape. Arms out at the corners of your mat and roll them out again. Big, full, deep breath. Rotating those arms out. Pull those fingers. Fingers touching the palms a lot. Elbows super strong and straight. External rotation in the arm bone. Breathe. Soft belly, soft glutes. Let that move all the way up the chain in your back. You may feel one side or the other shifting its position as you hold your arms in that strong spot. Good. Now take your arms straight out like a T, pigeon toe your feet. Same thing. Pull them out, forehead down. Really crank those arms back. Strong elbows. and release out of that. Go ahead and push up onto your hands and knees. And let's do a couple cats and dogs and just move through that whole chain. Round and arch, full flexion, full extension, letting it move into your middle back and taking it back up. Feeling the shoulder blades slide off your back and in towards your spine. Moving with your breath. Okay, from this position, we're going to increase that tension one more time. So on your belly, we were in full hip extension. That is required a level of demand that's pretty intense. But now we're going to go one more. So hands coming forward, knees slightly behind your hips. I want your pelvis to be able to move over your leg bones. So the goal of this is to let the belly drop forward so that we're literally letting the pelvis move over the head of the femurs and then letting your shoulder blades slide together and drop your head. Strong elbows, strong hands, fingers into the floor. Check out the points of your elbows and the flat parts of your elbows. And ideally, I want the flat parts of your elbows to face each other right now, or have that face slightly forward, like in a slight angle. But make them even, make them the same if you can. And then hold that. So pelvis dropping over the top of the femur bones so that that moves. And breathe. Collapse your shoulders. If your body wants to make an adjustment, go ahead and move a little bit. You can wiggle and let it sink down into that. That's a big arch right now. Breathe. And then gently come out of that. Come up to kneeling. So now we're out of hip flexion. We're coming back to hip extension, but in a kneeling position. And I'm pulling on the muscles that cross the hip and the knee, which are gonna pull the pelvis a little more forward. Now, ideally, you would be in a neutral pelvis, but if that's not happening, that's an indication that something else is too tight or too short. But I want the pelvis to be able to roll over the head of the femurs a little bit. So don't hold your belly and your butt tight right now. Let it do what it's doing. And you might even have to take that fascia suit again and like give it a little pull. Relax your belly, relax your butt. And let's do arm circles here. So fold your hands into that golfer's grip again. Kneeling there, arms out to the side. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Let that extension happen from the low back all the way up to the chain in the upper back. And circle forward 40 circles. If you had a shoulder that wasn't extending all the way, is it doing it now? Can you get it into your middle back? Take a breath again. Relax your butt, relax your belly. Take a full breath. And release. Palms up, turn them over, bring it up, squeeze your shoulder blades onto your back. Again, ask for that extension all the way up the chain. Strong elbows, strong fingers. Circle backwards. and release. Have a seat on your chair or your block. So now we're in hip flexion again, kind of like laying down on the floor. But I'm going to increase that demand by having you roll your pelvis forward. So we're going to increase the arch in your low back. So pelvis rolling forward over the head of your femurs. And then interlace your fingers, flip your hands over, strong elbows. We're going to extend up your whole spine, so hold that rolled forward position in your hips, rolling over the front of your hip bone. And you may feel, check your body, is it even on your chair or your mat? Maybe you need a little just fascia adjustment of your leg bones, and let the sit bones be more even, or the femur bone and the relationship to the sit bone feel more even, especially if you're one of those people with a hip disparity, one side doing something different than the other. Interlace your fingers, flip your hands over, strong elbows, pull it up. Relax your belly, keep trying to roll your pelvis forward over your leg bones, and then take that up. If you can get your elbows super strong and straight here, you could even bring your ears over your shoulder and take that extension all the way up into the neck and lift your chin, look up, relax your belly, pull your arms more back, and breathe. So now that's more demanding for the pelvis, more demanding for the upper back, because we're loaded. Keep rolling forward. See if you can find your hip flexors, the muscles that pull your pelvis forward over your hip bones, as if you're beginning to do a forward fold in your pelvis. Find those muscles, those hip flexors. Relax your belly, stronger elbows, pull your arms more back, look up, take 3 more breaths. You could even press your big toes or press your toes down into the floor to make that whole chain light up a little better. Oh, I just got some more movement in my hips. Did you find it there? That entire chain from your toes up to your upper back, connected, extending, and release your arms. Awesome. Now let's cross the right ankle over the left knee. I'll mirror you. Cross it over and just see if you've got some external rotation in your leg bone. If your pelvis is sitting in a really good place, this should happen easily. If you're still a little tight in there, keep trying to get a little more forward in your hips and just open that up. This is a pretty demanding position to ask for this external femur rotation, but you can do it. Take it over there and just breathe. Relax your belly, relax your shoulders. Pull your foot back so that chain all the way from the front of the foot up the shin, that's locking the knee to help the rotation happen at the hip. And this should give you information again. If your body can't externally rotate that hip, it means that something else along the line still hasn't quite let go, or the muscles are really super tight, but probably it can just open if we get a little more movement somewhere else up the chain. Go ahead and switch sides. Just compare right to left. Woo. If you have one that's way tighter than the other, this is a place also you can still grab onto that fascia, that skin suit that you're in, and give it a little pull to help open that up. And maybe that leg will just drop into a better position more easily. So the glutes in this position are, the deep six muscles are shortening, but the glutes are actually lengthening because the leg is in front of you, and the glutes are a hip extender. They pull your leg behind you, so you're actually getting a lengthen demand on the butt muscles, and you're working those deep six, those muscles that rotate the leg outward. Good. Then go ahead and release out of that. We're going to come to standing and use your chair or your block, and let's go 1 foot forward and 1 foot back. And you can measure that by putting your knee right behind your front heel, tuck your toes under, and I want you to be in a position in this one so I can like make this higher, because I still want extension all the way up to your shoulders right now. So if you're super round in your back, if your block or your chair is too low and you can't move the pelvis over your leg bones, then I need you to put your hands on the wall or put your hands on the back of a chair, something so that you can come up out of it a little bit, so you can literally roll the pelvis over the front of the leg bones with the legs straight. And let that still create extension all the way up to the shoulders. Roll the weight to the inside of your feet. Find the adductor muscles, those inside leg muscles. Keep trying to make the movement of pelvis rolling over the top of the leg bones, and do your best to get square, which means pulling the right hip back if your right foot is forward and your left hip back. And just hold it and breathe. Again, so we're dorsiflexing the ankles and rolling over the top of the pelvis. And I want you to lift and then press your toes down into the floor just to pull on that whole system a tiny bit more. And you may feel that shift in the outside of your hip. Lift, press. Pressing the bottom, the toes down into the floor, not curling, but just pressing them down. Help all those muscles at the bottom of the feet. When I ask you to squeeze your foot muscles together, or what keeps the arch lifted, those muscles are responsible for that. They go all the way up to the area behind the knee. And when those muscles work well, those intrinsic foot muscles, then the arch stays lifted and maintained, and therefore so does the ankle. But if you don't have access to these deep foot muscles, very often the arch starts to fall, and then it's very difficult to align things higher up the chain because you're working on an unstable or even stuck, stiff base. Good, switch sides. Which is why the orthotic idea made so much sense to people, which was, let's align the foot so the ankle bone aligns so that everything else balances more easily. The only problem with that is it's essentially a brace for your foot, and it doesn't necessarily mean those deep foot muscles are actually active at all. Okay, so we switch sides. High enough, again, your goal is to roll the head of the pelvis over the front of the leg bones. And check your back foot, make sure it's pointed straight ahead. I just had to adjust mine. My heel was a little bit in, and I'm really after outside of the foot straight ahead. And then both legs straight, rolling the pelvis over the head of the femur, letting it extend all the way up into the upper back. You can even have some releasing in your shoulders, maybe some rotation in your head as that moves up the chain. Weight to the insides of your feet. Maybe even you find your adductors. And then go ahead and do those toe lifts and curls. Relax your belly. As you go into more flexion, your belly can actually activate because your belly is a spinal flexor. So it's not that it never activates, but I want to get into a good position in the pelvis before that happens. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to take this away, and I want you to do a forward fold now. So feet on the floor, let your pelvis roll over the head of your femurs. And in the clinic, that's what I'm watching for, is how well does that happen. And then go ahead and let your spine round, let your belly contract, let your shoulders and head relax, tuck your chin, and just hang out in that forward fold. As long as you don't have active sciatic pain when you do this, hang out there. You can even interlace your arms and let your shoulders just hang, tuck your chin, and keep trying to move your pelvis over the top of your leg bones. Now, if you were super, super, super flexible and that happened and you actually went too far, that is possible. People have over lengthened their hamstrings, or their hamstrings are a little hypermobile, and the pelvis goes too far. So if you're somebody that has that, then you may need to like reel it in just a little bit. But for most of us, just trying to get the pelvis over the top of the leg bones is a challenge. So hang out there, breathe, see if you can find your hip flexors. You'll feel them on the inside of your legs. So now we're getting some spinal flexion, which we haven't done yet till now. We've been after all this extension. 2 more breaths here, big, open, wide in your rib cage. And then go ahead and come on up. And just feel how that feels for a moment. As you come to standing, what's the balance right to left? How are your shoulders? How do they line up? What's happening through your body? All right, let's do a little work in standing, since we'll leave you in standing today. I'm going to have you go ahead and balance on one foot, and we'll go back to your feet. So finding your balance, hold underneath one knee. Make sure that your foot on the floor is straight, which may want to make that leg bone rotate in a funny way. Do the best to square your pelvis. Open your shoulders and circle your foot. Let's go 10 times all the way around. Reverse. Point and flex. And release. Second side. Load that side. See if it will handle it. Shoulders down and back. Circle. All the way around. Hopefully you can find those foot muscles we found earlier. With that standing leg, so that that whole chain is supported well. Point and flex. Awesome. Feet pointed straight ahead. Fold your fingers into that same golfer's grip. Take it back up. Deep breath in. Elbow curls all the way together and all the way back. All the way in, all the way back. Extend through your upper back. All the way together. And squeeze them. See if you can get both of them to come into your spine. Relax your belly, relax your butt muscles. Awesome. Keep your shoulders open. Hold that position. Soft belly, soft glutes up onto your toes 10 times. Nice. Take your feet out. Same thing. Up under those toes, toes into the ground, all the way up that whole leg. So externally rotating your leg bones. Now we're shortening the glutes a little bit. Shortening those deep six, your in hip extension. That's going to have an effect on your pelvis, making your pelvis tip a little bit less forward or stay a little bit more straight, just because of what happens to the pelvis when you rotate those leg bones out. And then when we pigeon toe, it's going to put a little more arch into your low back. So feel that. And up. And then back to straight. And ideally, you would be able to be in a neutral position here without having to do anything, just resting in that position with good extension all the way up the chain, and then feet pointing straight ahead, last ones, toes to, pressing toes down into the floor so that whole bottom of the foot is strong. Awesome. And then if it's available to you, I want you to go into a child's pose before we go onto your back in whatever position is comfortable for you today. So we'll go full flexion. If that's not okay for your knees, please listen to your body. But if it is available to you, go for it. Go ahead and sit back into it. And you can have your hands up in front if you're working on extension, or if it feels okay, you can drop them back and have full flexion of all of those joints. Forehead resting on the floor. Just breathing into that. Your back needs to be able to round here. When you go into this much hip flexion, at some point the thigh bone hits the top of the pelvis, and it should ask the pelvis to tip backward. And that backward tip should allow the back muscles to release and the knee to go, and tension in the shoulders to release. And then when you're ready, come on out of that. Lie down on your back in a straight leg position, or go ahead and put your legs back up over your block. It's already 8:30, so I'm going to just allow you to be in that position. And just for 1 minute, I want you to just pay attention to your breath today. Pay attention to the work that we did in your body. And just allow it to integrate for a moment. You can hold that thought. The body wants to be able to do what you're asking. If it's not being able to do that, then we have to understand why. It's not necessarily about stretching into it with how the bones and joints are moving. Stretching into it may stretch the connective tissue more than we want to, which would create an instability. And that instability can wear joints out and can have some energy leaks that we would like to take care of and close up so that we have optimal flow of health and energy and optimal vibration and all that good stuff. So take one breath and just breathe that in. And then I will allow you to come back around. I want to hear some feedback about how that felt today. You have to unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Oh, that was fascinating.
Yeah?
Yeah. So when I would push my toes into the bottom, it almost made things more difficult.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and then my wrists were really hurting when they were on the block. I had to make a fist instead of the wrist.
So then that's one of those things to say, like, okay, the ability for the wrist to do that is not quite happening right now. So probably the shoulder isn't sitting in a position that lets the bone rotate well enough all the way through the forearm to let flexion of the wrist happen. Now there's both a functional position and a strength position that needs to happen for that to occur. But it's good for you to work that unloaded then a little bit and know that continuing to change up that whole chain in your upper back and into your shoulders will allow that to move into a position where healing can happen, which as a massage therapist, for sure you've gone after those quite a bit.
Ira, I missed the part where you work with the rubber band.
Yeah, just like that. So when I put the shoulder in that position and we get to use that kind of open 30-degree position, you could do straight out from your shoulders too, but that lower. And then basically you're working the extensor. So we can work the flexors, and we do a lot by doing stuff with our hands, but being able to work the extensor part of our hand is less common way to work. So we can affect change in the forearm and the shoulder by working the extensor chain, kind of like we work the foot in two different positions or many positions. And that can shift what's going on in the shoulder, in the upper back, maybe even the pelvis, by getting the compensation in the upper back to change.
And you do it with your thumb?
Yeah, in there too. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, if I have a little kit that I put together, I want a really big slant board now so that we can change the position of our ankles by being on a slant board, like a big one. So if somebody wants to be inspired and help me build it, that we could have that in class, that you would have your blocks, your band, a slant board you could move in different directions, and like some little bands. I think that would be cool. Even though we used all the same moves that we normally do, did that feel really different in why we're doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
We felt really different. We felt much taller.
You do. So it helped release some stuff in there. Yeah, your shoulders are away from your ears in a way better way right now, too. Cool.
Really like the reminders to soften your belly and soften your glutes. I
Yeah.
hadn't even realized I was holding tension in the glutes, and then I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Let me go. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the most frustrating parts, I think, for me in trying to make the body be a shape. And I feels like I went that direction with really good research and really excellent education about why and what to do about it, which maybe doesn't mean never do it, but it really literally means I was stopping what the human form was asking for by holding it in a spot. So that is, I'm having to just, be like, I can't change where I was with it, and I'm coming back to knowing why not to.
Kyra, I noticed my ankles, my shins were really burning when I was doing point and flexes, and more than usual. So I don't know what that means.
About like why that was moving or something in those ways. Huh.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else? All right. Have a fabulous day. And I will see you on Thursday.
You sent us a
Hey.
calendar.
Can I send you a calendar?
Did you?
I re-uploaded all of the pieces, so I think you can put them on your calendar now. Maybe I have to add a link to an email. I don't know. I'm not quite sure about that, but I added a bunch more classes through August or something on mine. So I'll see how to send you a link.
Yeah, that would be
I
great
think
if you would
need
do that.
Another email. I'm gonna look at the calendar, but I think that
I
maybe
didn't have a new email either.
Okay.
I have Thursday, but let's see.
I don't have any of them.
Okay. I'll send a new email today.
I don't have.
Awesome.
No, I have.
I think July 16th was the last.
Okay.
I've got August 16th,
Okay. Well,
but I don't know whether I just
has that happened?
ended it. But thank you.
Yeah.
Kyra.
Thank you.
And thank you, all of you, continuing to help and support me. I appreciate it. See you later.
Do it. Hey, bye, Kyra.
Bye.